Hello and welcome to the Feel Better podcast. I'm Charlotte the counsellor, and I've been a counsellor for the last 20 years. This is a space where I show up and share with you the stories, strategies, and ideas that I've gleaned over my time helping people to navigate the things that keep them from feeling their best. Whether that's to do with your own well-being, parenting, or relationships, I'm here to help you feel better. Thanks for joining me. Well, welcome to today's episode of the Feel Better podcast, all about family estrangement. This is actually an incredibly common issue that I get asked about a lot, that people frequently come to counselling around, and it is incredibly complex. The reality that sometimes our relationships with our family members break down to the point of complete estrangement, or sometimes some kind of partial contact. Now, this is really difficult, with a whole lot of emotion to process and often no clear end in sight. Even in a scenario where there is complete estrangement, there is still a whole lot of emotions to process, and this is really complex. Now, you know that I'm really open and sharing personally on this podcast. What I want to acknowledge today is that there is a lot of lived experience around this within my own family. Now, you know that the line that I hold around this is that I don't want to breach other people's privacy in telling stories that relate to others without their permission. So the detail around that is not something that I'm going into, other than to say this has been a significant lived experience across my life. So I get it. Now, as I talk today, I'm hoping that I'm going to cover a range of different scenarios, whether you're the person who is choosing to hold a distance within a relationship, or whether perhaps you're experiencing estrangement where you really would like relationship with the other person. And I know there are a lot of different dynamics here. This can be between siblings and parents. There are a range of different scenarios where we can see family estrangement that really has an impact. So today I'm going to offer some thoughts and some space to explore this topic. Hopefully a whole lot of solidarity and acknowledgement of the complexity of this challenge. Now, I think the hardest thing, and equally the most important thing when it comes to family estrangement, is that we have to accept that nobody has the right to us, to relationship with us. And the flip side of that is also that we don't automatically have a right to another person that happens to be a family member having an ongoing relationship with us. That is the toughest, most fundamental thing that I can talk about in this episode today, that we have to make peace with that. Now, this can be incredibly difficult to process when it comes to our expectations of what family bonds and ties theoretically should look like, that we would like them to look like. And particularly one thing I notice is how difficult this is for parents who are estranged from their children and they do not want their relationship to be like that. And why that is so tough for parents is that often parents do have a sense of entitlement to ongoing relationship with their children. Now, that is somewhat understandable. Parents sacrifice a lot for their children, and regardless of what it is that has or hasn't happened, in most parents' minds, they have done their very best with the skills, the tools, the energy, the time that they had to be a good parent to their child. And it is incredibly hard to end up out of relationship with a child that you've poured a lot of your time into. And yet, giving birth to someone, parenting them, doesn't mean you have a right to relationship with them. And the reality of our human relationships is that we can hold people dear, but we ultimately hold them loosely. When it comes to family estrangement, the grief aspect of this is incredibly important to understand. A lot of people will say when it comes to estrangement within their family, it can be even tougher than the loss of a person if they died, because you have lost that person and yet they are still alive. And when it comes to grief, we can be grieving the person and the relationship that we had with them, as well as grieving how we would have liked it to be. Our hopes, how relationships usually are, our expectations of what a sibling relationship looks like, or of how a parent should support a child. So there are so many layers of grief when it comes to family estrangement. One of the top things I say to clients about family estrangement is that we need to accept this is a grey area. This is something that is changeable, where what we want and need might change, where how we feel over time could well change. And something I see often that's a really common issue is people being trapped behind the boundaries that they have set. I think that if you are the person who is wanting to have reduced contact or no contact with a family member, you need to make sure you also give yourself the flexibility to change that if you want to. I cannot tell you how many people I have worked with who feel trapped behind the boundaries and lines that they have set, where they go, I actually wouldn't mind having a relationship with that family member again, but I have no idea how to navigate that. I have no idea to transition from the no contact we have to something else going forward. And so it is just all too hard. Now, boundaries when it comes to family members and being estranged from a member of our family can actually be applaudable. We want to have those boundaries. Firm boundaries are really important. It's important we hold those lines for our own mental health and well-being, because nobody should negatively impact our mental health in such a detrimental way that we sometimes see in family relationships. So yes, boundaries, but yes, also this is a grey area and we need to sometimes allow ourselves flexibility. I think it's incredibly important that if we are changing the nature of our contact and relationship with family members, that we're really discerning about that we're clear on our reasons why, we're clear on what it is that will help keep us safe, how we will review that, how we'll be supported to change things again if we need to. But one of the most helpful things that you can hold if you've got family estrangement going on is an appreciation that this is a grey area, that this is something that is seldom hard and fast and fixed. Part of that is because people change across their lifetime. Sometimes, for example, being no contact with a parent for an extended period of time changes the power balance and actually helps you feel safe. If you've been empowered to make that call to go no contact before, then of course you can do it again. You know that you can do that, and that helps you to feel a lot safer to relate to that parent that you find difficult. So one of the biggest things that I want to see happen more when it comes to family estrangement is people recognizing that things need to be able to be held in a way that allows room for change. Also really important when it comes to family estrangement is understanding and expecting triggers. Now, things like birthdays, Christmas, anniversaries can be really difficult times, and it is so important that you allow space for the emotions that sit around these times of year. One of the pieces of advice I often give is to make space proactively for the emotions that you know will be there, rather than having Christmas Day completely ruined by the overwhelming feelings that are existing. How about making some time in those couple of days before to journal, to look at photos, to cry, to release the emotion that exists? I think of it like a little pressure valve when it comes to leading up to significant events and milestones. How do you make space proactively to sit with those emotions and to acknowledge them in the hopes that maybe you still get to enjoy that day, or you get to get through that day that is otherwise really difficult a little bit easier. So make space for those emotions, have a plan around how you regulate through those difficult emotions, and hold yourself well through those times. Get ambitious with how you journey with yourself in a kind, compassionate way through those really difficult emotions. The other important thing if you're in a relationship is to get your partner on board. Now, this is something that can be incredibly difficult to understand, where someone enters into the world of our family without the background and the history that we have. So often I see people expecting their partner to get it, and they might have grown up in a really different family context and not be able to quite understand the complexities of this estrangement. So share stories with them. Be clear on what's helpful. Ask them proactively for what it is that you need. But having a partner who's on board, who gets it and is supporting you is really important if you're navigating this. Now, around family estrangements, there are often other family members, extended family members, even friends who have their opinions. And people can get very pushy if they don't understand how complex this area is, how hard this is to process. They can get pushy about, why don't you just get on with that person? Bury the hatchet. Life's too short. You can get all of these things that people say around the need to restore relationship. And my encouragement to you is be ready with your pushbacks. This is actually really hard for me. This is something I'm processing with my partner, my therapist, whoever it is. I actually have this topic as a closed topic when it comes to conversation with other people. Get those lines ready that you can use. You know, if you're turning up to a family gathering and someone is not there, you might want to send a message in advance about that to say, hey, look, I'm just acknowledging so-and-so isn't going to come. You know, this is really complex. I want to enjoy this situation without lots of questions about where they are and what is happening. So please, can we respect that and enjoy this occasion? A well-timed message beforehand or a pre-prepared pushback can be really helpful in navigating what is a complex social situation. Now, if you find yourself estranged from a family member and you don't want to be estranged from them, one of the most important things that you can do is reflect on how your unbearable feeling has contributed to this relationship. If you're not familiar with this concept of unbearable feelings, there are a couple of great episodes earlier on in the podcast that are some of my most popular podcast episodes that you can dive into to explore this concept. But basically, it's the idea that we all have a feeling or two that we really don't want to feel. Maybe it's feeling unheard or criticized. Maybe it's feeling rejected or left out, or that you have failed. Maybe it's feeling abandoned. Whatever it is, in the middle of family estrangement, time and time again, I spot the power of people's unbearable feelings and how it has contributed to the breakdown in the relationship. Because we would rather even sacrifice relationships with those we are closest to than feel our unbearable feeling. That is really hard to understand. But my encouragement to you is to reflect on what part has your unbearable feeling had to play when it comes to the estrangement you're now experiencing. And now the most powerful question, of course, that you can ask, if you're able to, when it comes to an estrangement with a family member that you want to restore is, what would it take? What would I need to change to have a relationship? The ball is in their court if they are estranged from you, and giving them the power to define and describe to you what it is that would need to look different can start that negotiation, can start you thinking about, can I actually do that? Can I do the work to be able to commit to that? What support do I need to be able to do those things that they are asking of me? Often there is a way through and there is a way forward back to relationship if everybody is willing to learn, to grow, and to change. I think one of the toughest things about family estrangement is learning how to reduce our expectations. And when it comes to difficult people in our lives, we think about boundaries and things that we do not want to cross. So I'm not going to be spoken to rudely. I'm not going to allow my children to be sworn around, whatever it is. These are the bottom line boundaries. I'm not going to stay in a situation that feels physically unsafe to me. These are the boundaries. You know, my expectations for a relationship are that people will be kind and understanding and flexible and whatever it is that you're ultimately hoping and dreaming for in the relationship. And the reality is the relationship will fall somewhere between those hopes and expectations that you have and those bottom line boundaries. Now, sometimes some relationships might hang out down here. They might never even reach anywhere near those hopes and expectations, but there can be things that you can still enjoy. For example, if you're trying to maintain a relationship with a difficult family member for the benefit of younger children, perhaps grandchildren or something like that, then maybe you're going to be hanging out down in this space, holding those boundaries around, look, if it's like this, we're not staying, or we're back to no contact, or whatever it is that are those bottom line boundaries. Acknowledge those and by all means hold those, but recognize that it is unlikely the relationship is going to meet that point of your hopes and expectations. Now, that is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to our human relationships. Having some kind of relationship that doesn't meet our expectations, that sometimes can be disappointing. But if we're choosing to have that relationship for a purpose, we can learn to tolerate those things. That is where the support of a counsellor can be incredibly helpful in navigating how it feels to be in relationship with this person that might be quite difficult. Now, everyone's situation is really different when it comes to estrangement within family relationships. There are different dynamics, there are different histories, and I think one of the most important things to say is that this is complicated. It is really tough to navigate by yourself. If you're trying to do this just with the perspective of co-workers and helpful friends, that may not be enough. Go and get some help in therapy to move through the emotions around this, to make the decisions that you need to make, to journey through the grief, the loss, and the challenges. If your family has been touched by family estrangement, I send lots of love and understanding from my heart to yours. Gosh, it is tough to live in this world with all of these dynamics that go on between people, and sometimes relationships just don't work well. My encouragement is to get the support that you need, to be able to explore what kind of relationship you could have, to be able to explore what have I done that has contributed to this situation, and to be able to hold the grey of family estrangement. It's super tough in an episode like this to be able to speak to every different possible scenario that exists. So if you'd like some personal advice, do feel free to reach out to me. But I hope that there's been some helpful tips or understanding gleaned today from this episode. Thanks for joining me today on the Feel Better podcast. I'm super proud of you for spending this time prioritising your well-being and hopefully learning a few things to help you navigate the tough stuff in life. I'd love to stay connected, so come and find me on Instagram at Charlotte the Counsellor, on Facebook, Charlotte Cummings Counselling, or head over to my website, charlottecummings.nz, where there's heaps of free resources waiting for you. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.